They buy here cause it's the cheapest, because we abuse our labor, keep them part-time working 40 plus a week, no health insurance, and it gets better. We can buy in bulk from China, make $2 off for every penny spent in sweatshops, or by the judge, jury, politicians, newspapers, TV stations. Then we can tell them what they want, exactly how to get it, monopolize till we own the earth and moon, then expand to other planets. More we conquer, then the more we profit. Record earnings every quarter, billions in bonuses, paid stockholders get rich off the backs of the poor, sell a store more and more to our company store.
This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek and Pacifica, and we've covered the growth of fascism in the United States, the danger of a fascist movement, and the increasing strength of fascism, not only in the United States, but internationally. And today we're joined by John Palmer. He's an international vice president of the Teamsters, and he has been taking up the issue of the dangers facing Teamsters, facing working people with the rise of fascism in the United States, and also concerns about the visit of President John O'Brien to the Mar-a-Lago and to the Teamsters.
Good to be here, Steve.
So, John, you have been concerned for some time that there's a danger of fascism in this country reviving, and that, why don't you talk about where you're coming from in relationship to your public calls for the Teamsters not to support Donald Trump?
I think it's pretty obvious what's happened over the last several weeks, and actually several years. You know, you and I have discussed in the past that, you know, the two-party system is sort of failing working men and women and our general population, but the power of one party or the other to appoint justices to the Supreme Court, which at one time was out there to settle disputes, sometimes as simple as a fence over on somebody else's property when it couldn't be settled in the lower courts, has turned into an agenda by ideologues who have chosen to take a path towards fascism, empowering a president, giving him immunity. The Chevron agreement, which basically there are people just like in our building at the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. There are career people that operate in those services for the benefit of everyone, right?
So you're saying that the NLRB and the LRA, which has been Labor Relations Act, which have been the foundation in the post-war period for labor elections, labor organizing, the Amazon struggle, the merger of Amazon Workers Union and the Teamsters, and organizing is based on these labor laws. Yet it seems that the Supreme Court, with the Chevron decision, has basically said that a judge now will determine issues like health and safety, like the environment. And in Texas right now is facing a catastrophic situation with this storm and what's happening to working people and the community in Houston. We're just beginning the season. It seems like labor protections, environmental protections have something to do with the future of working people in this country.
There's a lot packed into what you just went through with me, and you know, so it makes me think about a conversation I had with a friend of mine in Fort Worth. We just had another driver die in the UPS driver die in the heat. So the protections, you know, one of the wonderful things about a labor agreement for people, for many people, is the idea that you have some protections beyond even what the law provides. But you know, when these systems fail, both the Railway Labor Act and the National Labor Relations Act are there as a backstop to settle those disputes, just like the Supreme Court was at one point. You know, and they make law now; they don't interpret it. But we're suffering from this idea that Project 2025, if anybody's read it, is going to allow whoever the president is, throw out the Democrat, the Republican, that president will be able to discharge these people that are working for these services, and many of them, believe it or not, are nonpartisan people. They're there because they want clean water, They want a safe working environment. They want a fair labor board. The labor board that Donald Trump was staffed with union busters from Jones Day. That is supposed to be a place where we're looking for justice, lady justice with the blinders and the scales, and that's not what we're getting there. So you think about all the different regulatory agencies, FDA, the implications of what's going on right now are so broad and so deep, and I don't know that, I'd encourage anybody that has time, sit down, it's online, sit down and read Project 2025 and see where these people want to take us. They're taking us to an imperial presidency. This happened with Viktor Orban. It's happening in other countries across the world. We're flirting with something that's very dangerous, and they're actually going to strip us of our rights as Americans, our democratic freedoms, without ever firing a shot. It's dangerous, and we're not protecting people anymore. A lot of people are forced to work out in the heat, and
Well, even in Texas, and Florida, they got rid of regulations to protect workers. I mean, OSHA, I understand there are less than 100 OSHA inspectors in Texas.
right.
In Florida, people are dying today, and you could have hundreds of thousands of people die in this country with the ongoing climate crisis, and they don't want to mention the word climate. I mean, this is the Republican Party position, which we shouldn't mention the word climate.
I agree with you, and that's why we shouldn't get anywhere near the Republican Party until, look, in a reasonable world, our political action committee is called DRIVE, Democrat, Republican, Independent Voter Education. In a reasonable world where you had two reasonable parties, you would want to do that. You would want to appeal to the moderates in both parties and build a consensus that supports working men and women and everyone. I mean, we're about more than just the working class. We're about everyone's well-being. We all got to share this planet. We all got to have enough food to eat, water to drink, all those things. And unfortunately, the track record of the Republican Party I want to go back as far as Ronald Reagan has been to strip regulations out, and the appointments to the Supreme Court are creating an autocratic government, and with no levers or brakes to stop the president from creating his own fiefdom. He's going to be a king. That's not where we want to be.
Well, it sounds like insurrection is not above the law. They're basically saying he shouldn't be prosecuted for the attempted coup and the insurrection in Washington, and he wants to release all the people who are involved in that. And many of these people, they had the Confederate flag, and that is another issue: racism, attacks on LGBTQ people throughout the country. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of Teamsters who are Black, who are brown, who are LGBTQ, who think that they will be affected if these people are in charge, since they ideologically don't believe that these people have rights.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. And we think one of the larger issues in front of us is what they've done to women's rights. I mean, all of those groups, including women, are immigrants, or they're Teamsters. They work at jobs that, what I love about the Teamsters Union is, when the pandemic hit, we took care of people. We service the public. That's what we do. And many of our members died. We put ourselves at risk so that society would keep moving. We'd have goods and services for people. So it's really, really important. When you start stripping away basic human rights and reversing things like Roe v. Wade and, don't ask, don't tell was the first step in that direction with Clinton. And then finally we got to where we allowed, people who are gay in the service. And then during the Trump tenure, they tried to undo that again. We're not, we're supposed to be a progressive society moving in a forward direction. What we're doing is taking ourselves back to a very, very Puritan sort of time. I mean, it's not even within the last century. We're talking about, what's next? Are we going to stone people? Are we going to burn people at the stake. Apparently the president can call SEAL Team 6 out on people and have them assassinated. And then it's an official act. So this is not what the founders of this country intended.
And one of the reasons that people came to this country was to escape religious oppression and not to be discriminated against. Yet it sounds like they want a Christian nation. That's what they want to turn the United States into, which was against one of the reasons the United States was founded.
There's a quote that we've heard probably throughout our lifetimes that says that when fascism comes, it'll come wrapped in a flag and waving a cross. And it's been around as long as I've been alive. As a matter of fact, I tried to trace it to its original roots and I couldn't find it, but it couldn't be any truer today than it was before I was born. And people have a right not to believe in any religion. They have a right to believe in their religion. And we also have the responsibility to allow people to worship or believe in a manner they believe in. And that, if you're a Christian, which is a small minority of the world's population, and if you read a little bit of what Jesus wrote about, he was about tolerance. He didn't judge anybody. So if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be imposing your faith and your beliefs on other people. Why don't you just practice them?
And there's also the issue of workers who are affected by rail wrecks. You were in East Palestine. What happened in East Palestine? Because those residents and workers that were trade unionists, Chris Albright was one of them. He was poisoned by Norfolk Southern. And it seems that Norfolk Southern and this government is saying that they want a settlement, they want a class action that will not include health care, which should be a basic human right, and the right to move out of a poisoned community, that they're still stuck with their families, with their children, in a place that's been poisoned. Yet it seems like we have unlimited money for wars abroad. This is really angering a lot of people in East Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that it's not maybe the perfect analogy, but, the idea that charity starts at home. We should be taking care of our own first and foremost, and defending the country when it needs to be defended. But again, we were warned by that General Eisenhower about the military-industrial complex and the whole profit first motive, which is the problem with what's going on with the railroad right now, and the government's inability to escape the grasp of corporate money. That's another decision by a right-wing Supreme Court that allowed corporate donors to give unlimited amounts of money, saying that corporations are people. I've never seen a corporation bleed. I've never heard a corporation speak to me other than this idea that they can make government malleable. The Koch brothers. I mean, these are the kind of people that are trying to actually become rulers. I mean, it's just that simple. They want to rule this country, and they want us to be subjugated to their power.
And the fact that, for example, in Boeing, and there may be a strike of the machinists at Boeing, killed hundreds of people because of profit. They wouldn't let the people know that there were dangers in that plane. And apparently the government is going to sign an agreement letting them off the hook, that these CEOs that were paid $30-40 million while the health and safety was threatened, while they moved the Boeing plant, one of their production plants, to South Carolina to get rid of unions, to get rid of union protection and health and safety in order to make more profits. It seems like this whole profit system is really wrecking our whole economy.
It is. I mean, and then again, back to the idea of the Republican Party, Nikki Haley was involved in making sure that they didn't, they didn't come to South Carolina as a unionized entity. So, I mean, I live in north of San Antonio, and when they closed Kelly Air Force Base down, Boeing's got a maintenance facility where the Air Force Base used to be, but it's non-union, and that there's a long history here in Texas of folks or governments saying that we'd love to have your your industry, but we don't want your union here. And
They're getting government money and they're busting unions. I mean, you
right.
think that should be allowed? That companies that flagrantly violate, like Elon Musk fired 700 auto workers who wanted to join the UAW in Fremont. Nothing happened.
Right.
Workers were getting injured on the job. He was covering that up, committing workers' comp fraud, conspiring, which is a felony. Nothing happened. I mean, it seems like it's a completely one-sided system. And then you have also, and maybe you can talk about this whole AI and robotics being used to destroy millions of jobs, including Teamsters at UPS. The future looks pretty bleak when these billionaires, I would call them techno-fascists, want to bring in AI in order to destroy workers so they can make more profits.
So yeah, the beauty of trade unions is we've had a seat at the table with our employers, and in Europe, in many cases, they actually have a seat on the board, which I think is a smarter way of doing things. There's more accountability. But clearly we need to, AI is probably the it's like there's a snake in my bed, right? I need to get the snake out of the bed, figure out how to mitigate the problem. We understand that progress is inevitable, but we're in the business, if you will call it a business, of not making a profit. We're here to take care of people. That's our function. And when we see an obvious threat to our people, our members, we should respond in a manner using our resources. As a matter of fact, I submitted a very simple resolution to the General Executive Board in our last meeting that proposed that we engage and involve our different departments, our research department, our political legislative department, and our education department. It's sort of a three-prong approach that would attack the political side of it, and the fact that like you said, the Elon Musk of the world and these UPSs of the world are running wild with this stuff and being encouraged to do so to increase profits for the shareholders. The second part is taking care, educating our memberships as to what we can do to either move them to other positions. We certainly should be working on the machines that they put in the buildings, and then there, at the very least, there should be some sort of compensation for folks when they lose their jobs. That's not my favorite choice, but these things need to be put in place. And these things, we had a great opportunity during the UPS contract to really shape the direction all this was going in, and we failed to do that. We failed to do that, and Sean O'Brien even went as far as to claim that we had solved the problem. I think 10,000 or more members now have lost their jobs. You didn't solve any problem. You didn't address the problem, and we can't. And it's not just the Teamsters that are sleeping on this. So it's got to be dealt with. There's no getting around it.
And of course, these techno-fascists, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison, a lot of these people run non-union companies, and they apparently want a dictatorship. They want complete deregulation. Musk was in Argentina with Milei, who's another fascist who wants to privatize everything, all public services. He wants to break the unions. He's said that if he wanted a law that if 3 or more people meet together, it's illegal unless they got permission. And they want to basically destroy the trade union movement. Do you think that this is the future if fascism comes to power in the United States? The unions will be destroyed?
If we sleep, they will. I mean, or will be. I know in Mexico they have unions, but they're meaningless. They have no power. We really, I'm not an alarmist, but look, the handwriting's on the wall. They want to become part of a ruling class, and we're going back in history, where the elitists and the the blue bloods, the entitled, run everything, and the rest of us just run around and look for scraps and pieces. And I think Americans are feeling that. I think people across the world are feeling that because the economic pressures of driving down labor costs are we have children who are not being raised at home because parents are too busy trying to make ends meet. So it's not really, and I think it's naive to think that the president can solve these problems. I think we have to understand that these are really deep, serious problems that have to be pushed. The working class, and we have to move these things and make the people that serve us, which are elected officials, serve us and not the clowns that walk in their office with buckets of money.
And it sounds like there is no Labor Party. The working people don't have a political alternative, and that is another crisis for working people. There's anger at the political system, and yet there's no political alternative that working people have in this country and in many other countries for that matter. Growing frustration of working people. Now, there was a survey in the Teamsters around who Teamsters should support for the election. What happened in that survey?
Well, I know that the last numbers I saw, and I think that, the majority of this has been done, were showing that I believe Trump had about 37%, Biden had about 46%. I think RFK had somewhere in the area of 5%. Then the remainder were non-committed, didn't care, that sort of thing. So the members, as much as the discussion has been that labor is becoming more of a Republican Party, I think that's not really fair. I think 9 points is a significant number. I think to your earlier point, we could do better than either one of these parties. We could make both of them more effective if there were more options for people to vote, and we got rid of the money in politics, because I'm gonna call them what they are. The majority of these politicians are whores. That's what they are. Some of them are street whores, and other ones are high-priced whores. But they spend most of their time raising money and figuring out a way to deal with corporations, just the same as the corporate unions that we have in this country right now, including my own.
And so the survey is out, or has it been publicized to members?
No, those are numbers that I received.
Why hasn't the President O'Brien let members know that there was a survey and this is the results?
I can't get in President O'Brien's head, nor do I want to.
But they should know. Do you think that there should be?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think if we really wanted to do it properly, we would have sent out just like we do for a contract, send it out to every member and let them use their phones and electronic equipment to vote. I mean, we use those for elections all the time, and union drives.
And yet it seems that he has said that he's going to be going to the Republican convention, which starts on July the 15th, even apparently despite the fact that in a survey, they do not want to support ex-President Trump. Why would he do that? Why would he go to a convention of a party in which the members have said they don't want to support that party, and that party it may be like a fascist convention with anti-labor positions, right to work, against labor protections, OSHA, EPA, against the rights of women, against the rights of LGBTQ. I mean, what do you think it would mean in this country to have a national union leader going to such a convention?
Well, you said maybe a fascist. I think that's really being kind, Steve. Every bit of that is fascist in it on its face. And I will say publicly again, that there's 26 people on that general executive board. I know that the vast majority of those people don't support this, but
Are they afraid of speaking up? I mean, it seems like there's a atmosphere of terror, atmosphere that if you speak up, you're going to lose your multiple salaries, you'll be retaliated against, they're going to take your rights, your parking spot away. Is that a concern of these
You
people on these?
absolutely. I paid a price for being vocal, and I don't, personally, it's a really small price compared to the price that I would have paid if I'd just kept my mouth shut and allowed this to go on the way it is. Now, it's up to the members to do what they do. But I think people forget that when you get elected to these offices, your job is to serve and service the membership, right? And they're looking for truthfulness. And the truth is, I wish there was a second, there was more than the two options, but the poison of the Republican Party is a lot worse than the ill of the Democratic Party right now, and that's what we're forced with as a choice. Now the Democrats are they're sold out to big money too. Make no mistake, and they're politicians just as much as the other side. But this system is broken. I think I read the other day, the system's not broken, it's fixed. And I thought that was a wonderful analogy because it is fixed. The fix is in. Common people can't win in this system. Big money wins. And we are very close to a fascist state.
And the history of the Teamsters, of ILW, other unions. This is the 90th anniversary of the Minneapolis Teamster strike, which was led by militant Teamsters. They were Trotskyists, and they shut down the city. They faced the National Guard. Two workers were killed there. Yet they built the Teamsters Union and over-the-road trucking, which led to a national master freight agreement as a result of some of the gains of that strike. And yet it seems like that history, it doesn't come out of the mouths of any officials of the National Teamsters or many of the AFL-CIO. In other words, the history that led to the construction of our national unions during the 30s is absent from even saying that this took place 90 years ago.
That's true. And I think our, labor history is rich, and, it's wonderful to sit down and read about the struggles, the blood that was shed in the struggles to win the things that we all enjoy because of collective bargaining. And it's the frog in the water thing again. And here's about the education and what the union looks like now. I think you're correct. We should, my local union, if you go to the meeting, you're going to hear them brag about how much money they have in the bank, and there's just a little of this and that. You don't really get fed, and I think that's sad, because people need to understand where we came from and how we can lose it. And the idea of our leadership in DC is obsessed with the idea that we should wear suits and ties as vice presidents, and because I don't want to look like the oppressor. I'm not a businessman. The union is not a business. We need to look like our membership, not only in the way we dress, but in literally white, brown, gay, LGBTQ, whatever those things are. We should look exactly like our membership, and we should sound like our membership. My goal is not to look or sound like Elon Musk.
And the SEIU spent $200 million for Biden. It seems that the unions that are supporting Biden and the Democrats, all that money is going to the politicians. None of that is going to labor education or even the threat of fascism in this country, regardless of who wins the election. The rise of fascism is continuing regardless of who wins the election. Yet there's no education. There's no call for education. Labor councils could be having meetings on the issue of the rise of fascism and what it means, the history of fascism. It seems like there's a pressing need for working people to become educated about the danger of fascism and what it means for the working people in this country and their families.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as the resolution that I talked about. It's not being presented to the members, and at the end of the day, we people died serving this country. And if I have my uncle passed in Korea, but we as a union, somehow we have people who feel like we want to sort of stay free of politics and limit ourselves to labor issues. It's it's like an animal is an organism, right? And so we just want one part of that, but if you take the heart away, the animal dies. So at the heart of all this is the fact that we're all Americans. The democratic structure that we have here it was a great experiment. I mean, we've lasted about as long as any other. We've lasted about as long as any other free society in the history of the world. So we need to reform the system right now. It's fixed. It's not going to sustain itself and support the idea that government is servitude to the masses, and that's they're trying to flip that on its head.
And what would you urge Teamsters to do who hear this and do not want President O'Brien to go to the Republican convention? Notice time is short, but what should they do?
I think they should be very public about their displeasure. They should tell their local officers that they are not satisfied with what's going on, that this has no place. I'm going to be very vocal. I've had a few interviews with a couple of different news reporters over the last couple of days. We'll see where that goes. But we can't lay down on this. We can't. First of all, he's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to the entire labor movement. We scratch maybe law enforcement and firefighters. The rest of the labor movement's always stood together on broad labor issues, and we, particularly under the leadership of Sean O'Brien, have decided that we're the big, powerful $1.2 million team, 2 million member Teamsters, and we can go it alone. And we're actually playing three-dimensional chess when everybody else is just playing two-dimensional. So that's a fallacy. Anybody that understands collectivism and the power of grassroots knows that it comes from all of us. We can't divide and conquer is what the companies do. The fascists.
They'll have workers fighting each other. And
Right.
that's how they bust unions.
Right. Exactly. Keep them misinformed. Let them believe things that are not true about the union and about the people that they possibly will support in the next election. Certainly they can vote for who they want to. That's not, that's part of the freedom, right? But our responsibility is to educate around the issues. And then most people, when they're informed, will make a solid decision based on the facts. But you got to accept the facts.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us. We've been talking with John Palmer, International Vice President of the Teamsters Union, who is raising some serious concerns about the proposed visit of President Sean O'Brien to the Republican National Convention. Thank you for joining us, John, and hopefully working people will wake up. I know that they're against wokeism, but waking up to your history of working people, I think, is something that we want to do in this country and this world, because that has been covered up by corporate media, not to know the history of working people even in this country.
We changed the world and we built this country, Steve.